Anime live-action adaptations are very hit or miss, and the most recent one, One Piece, has done pretty well for Netflix, and the general consensus is that it's not too bad. It stumbles at times, but it is a very big upgrade from Cowboy Bebop, which Tomorrow Studios also created. But now an alleged contract writer for Netflix's One Piece has revealed that most Hollywood contracts contain a clause that allows them to alter the original source material as they see fit in their adaptations. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and live streams I create, consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So I wanted to start off and primarily show this Niche Gamer article because it says the alleged contract writer for the Netflix One Piece series revealed that most Hollywood contracts supposedly contain a clause that allows them to alter the original work as they see fit. Now, obviously, there's a lot to unpack here, but right off the bat, that doesn't really sound all that surprising when you look at all of the live-action adaptations that we have gotten over the past few years from Hollywood. They haven't really been that good, and they have made very large changes from the source material. They have strayed from the source material, and I think a reason why the One Piece adaptation did pretty good and didn't disappoint as much as we thought it would is because Oda himself was a part of it. I mean, we don't know to what extent, but we have heard that he was an executive producer. He was very hands-on with this project. He was telling them a lot of things that he really didn't want changed. He gave his feedback on things like costumes we've heard. Of course, on the actors themselves, he did help handpick them. So he was a very big part of this process, and that hasn't happened with the other live-action adaptations, unless we're talking about like, oh, they've gotten the original writer or one of the original creators to, help promote it a little bit, like do maybe interviews quickly on it or ask questions in other interviews they're doing on it. But we've never gotten such a hands-on approach, and I do think that is one of the big reasons why the One Piece series has done pretty good. I personally have enjoyed it. I don't think that it is perfect by any means, but it is definitely very good. It is a solid one. While yes, there were some race swaps in it, there were some deviations from the story, I think that there is a lot that's done well here. I think that the sets are really great. I think that the costumes, for the most part, are pretty good. The CGI is pretty good. A lot of the actors are fantastic, in my opinion. Luffy and Buggy are so well cast. It blows me away, but it does stumble in some areas, right? It's an anime to live action adaptation. There's definitely a lot of things that do not translate perfectly, but I do think that that is a big reason why this series has done better than the others, because Oda was so hands-on with it. It says if such a thing is the case, it would explain why a lot of Hollywood-produced adaptations are low quality or used as a vehicle for political statements as opposed to sticking to the source material. And I think that the most notable example of this is Tomorrow Studios' previous work, Cowboy Bebop. The Cowboy Bebop live-action series was abysmal. They had sets that were cardboard that were clearly just painted. There were costumes that looked like they were glued on the person, like they were glued together and not actually sewn. Some of the CGI was just not good, and a lot of the casting, unfortunately, failed to impress as well. And I do think that a lot of the changes that they made, like they didn't flesh out characters, they changed characters like Faye and their sexualities in pretty big ways. I do think that that is because of a clause like this, because they were allowed to, so they decided, what the hell, we might as well do it. The creatives behind The Witcher did the same thing. They had a really strong season 1 and people were hopeful that they would stay on that course of trying to closely represent the source material, and then season 2 stumbled and season 3 fell off a cliff, and that's a worry with One Piece, because while yes, season 1 was better than expected, and I think it's because they had Oda assisting them, they could just kick into the curb in season 2 and it could fall off of a cliff and not follow source material just like The Witcher. This clause shows that Netflix has all of the control so they can do whatever they want with it. Some people talk about, oh, is this breaking the adaptation curse? But you can't say that from season 1. You'd have to see what they do with the season 2 if they greenlight it. It says, a lawyer in Japan and New York brought up the matter by replying to an individual wanting Hollywood to more closely work with original creators. As such, an unheard of idea led many to liking the One Piece live action. I happened to notice this. I was in charge of the One Piece contract, so I can't comment, but since it's an important matter, I'll write about it. Everything depends on the contract. Almost 100% of all Hollywood-type contracts contain a clause stating that they are at liberty to alter the original content and that the author's personal rights cannot be exercised, and it doesn't just end with this. He elaborated further. Close communications is of course important, but the point is to be able to include conditions called quality control, making available the setting, design, script, drafts, etc. at every stage, as well as guaranteeing meaningful discussions regarding comments. There are more easily accepted methods, such as designating key factors and requiring approval from the original author for changes, but he concludes with saying that, it becomes difficult for the creatives to constantly, reach out and get approval from the original authors for the changes. And this does make sense, right? Because when Hollywood is taking a property like this, they know that they're not going to get it very close to the original, because you're like almost never going to have a one-to-one adaptation. But at the same time, I think that Tomorrow Studios went into One Piece, well, Tomorrow Studios and Netflix went into One Piece wanting something very different. I think they said, you know what, let's deviate from what we usually do, because of course Cowboy Bebop, was such a big disaster. Let's try the opposite approach. Let's really hone in on source material and let's get Oda's approval and let's really see what we can create. And I do think that it obviously has paid off for them. I mean, look at some of the scores of the previous series that just Netflix alone has done, and then look at not Cowboy Bebop, let's look at One Piece. Let's start with Cowboy Bebop. I mean, a 46% critic and a 60% audience. And keep in mind, the audience score was 15% lower previously. The only reason why it's at a 60 now is because when they announced they were canceling it and they were not doing a season 2, there were people who tried to positively, review bomb it and positively flood it with better scores, because those people were not showing up before. So that was, at one point it was all the way down to a 40, but it was around a 45 for a while. And then we have, Netflix's Death Note, which definitely is one for the history books and not for positive reasons. A 36% critic and a 23% audience. I mean, you can't get much lower than that. And then let's compare all of those scores to One Piece. An 85% critic, a 95% audience. I do think that a 95 is a bit high. I don't think that it is that good. I don't think it's that perfect, but I would agree with an 85, maybe an 80 at the lowest. I do think that there is still, of course, room for improvement, but it was a very solid adaptation, and I do hope that going forward, creatives look at this One Piece series and they go, you know what, let's try what they did. Let's get the original creatives. Let's really try to stick to source material. I hope that this is a sign of better things to come. Of course, we don't really know. To look at Tomorrow Studios, they had a big win with One Piece. They had a big loss with Cowboy Bebop. If they do a season 2 or a season 3 of One Piece, maybe they will fall off of a cliff in quality. Maybe they'll go back and they won't work with Oda as much, and we will revert to the days of the Cowboy Bebop. Or maybe, they will keep with this great this great base for potential other seasons, and they will do good. And maybe this, of course, will rub off on other creatives who are doing these adaptations, and maybe they'll go, you know what, let's try the One Piece route. Obviously, we won't know until more projects come out. A season 2 is not confirmed for Netflix's One Piece, but it does seem like it's potentially going to happen, seeing as they've said that they already have a lot of a script written, and they've got a really clear direction for what they'd want to do. Only time will tell, but there are contract writers now saying most Hollywood contracts let them alter content from the source, and I can't say that I'm all that surprised, but it is definitely very worrying and very disappointing to hear that creatives can just completely disregard source material if they feel like it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.